Good day and good noon, I suppose. Welcome to the Job Changes discussion stream with me, Chaiji. Kinda dark Chaiji, but you can just call me Kai. What's going to happen on this stream is, usually on patch day, what'll happen is that you might not be able to tune into any streams because, oh no, spoilers. But throughout today, I'll be doing separate streams for the potential spoilers. So we'll have this stream where we just talk about the job changes that are happening. Some got a little bit more than others, as you may know. Then, when we're done with that, I'll do a different stream where we do the new MSQ stuff. So if you are behind or you don't want to see me do it, you just don't tune into that one. And when we're done with that, break, and then we'll have the normal raid on stream, where again you can choose whether you want to join me or not. As I understand, a lot of people just went straight to the raid, so I guess I'll have to queue for that. Maybe I don't get 7 people to join me for it, but we'll see when we get there, like later today. Well, now the way I'm going to do this is that I'm going to go through the actual patch notes and explain what the different changes mean. Some of them are pretty obvious, and we're starting with the jobs that have less stuff. Once we're finished with all of that, I'll possibly go a little bit quickly over the PvP changes so that those are not completely forgotten. But that's the way this stream is going to go. Going through the job changes, and then that's it. With that said, hey Nox, hey Mizunashi, hey Zenkerkrieg, hey Talama, hey Gassel, hey Ham, hey Kat, hey Jin Monica, hey Naomi, hey Rust, hey Vince, hey Sam, hey Matthew, hey Remove, hey Nimryu, and hey Jana. Hope you're all doing very well. Now, we'll go over the riffraff first. Hey Walid, hope you're doing well. Pretty much, that's kind of the idea. So, that's also of course the easier ones to start with. I've zoomed in so that hopefully you can read along with me if you want to. Some of the simplest ones are the healers. Essentially, Sage, Scholar, and White Mage just got a slight boost to their dots. Essentially, that gives Sage and Scholar like 100 more potency per minute if you're like maintaining your dot perfectly. For White Mage, it's 110 because it gets an extra tick on hit, essentially. So 100, 100, and 110. Astrologian, on the other hand, experiences this thing that some of you may have seen, which is some jobs, as it turns out, had a clear advantage in what some would call cleave phases, which turned out to be a problem, quote-unquote, in the new Ultimate, FRU. That certain jobs overachieved pretty hard just because their single target rotation did more AoE damage just while it was there. Like, just incidentally, as I call it, incidental AoE, because it's AoE that, like, you paid for the single target, and then you're like, oh, there's also some AoE here, fantastic! And Astrologian is one of those. And the way they've done this is that the jobs that have been nerfed on incidental AoE typically have been buffed on deliberate AoE to compensate so that they don't just do less AoE damage now. If you actually want to do AoE, hopefully you'll do close to what it did before, but probably not. Some of them are pretty significant nerfs to AoE. For instance, Astrologian gets a slight boost to gravity, which makes their deliberate AoE better, but Oracle used to do full damage to all targets. Now, they didn't list how much that is, but let's take a look. Oracle did 860 potency to everyone. Just they made it so that it's only half that to secondary targets. On AoE pulls, the gravity buff is not going to compensate for that, because it's like that 10 potency boost to gravity, it'll take 43 of them to like make up that difference. But it's a little better. Is gravity gain on 2 now? That is a good question. Yes, it is. Good point, copper sulfate. That is actually a significant difference here, is that gravity 2 is now gain on 2. Because Fall Malefic is 270 and gravity is 140, so 280 on 2 targets. That is a significant change. Also, hey, Darth JF, and Ilya, and Master. Hope you're doing well, and Ilana, and also copper sulfate. But that's basically it for the healers. There's also Art of Gravity, the gain on 2. Right, so let's scroll past this huge block of text and jump to the ones that I believe got the second least changes, which are the tanks. So let's start with Paladin. That's the one that got the big nerfs, actually. So it turned out that in FRU, Paladin had a significant advantage because of cleave damage, as I said, incidental AoE, which is what you're seeing changed here. Total Eclipse, Prominence, and Holy Circle, which are all deliberate AoE, getting pretty big buffs. In fact, at low level, like at level 40, when you get Prominence, Paladin is going to be insane on AoE. Like, I'm just saying, I have previously said, like in lower levels, that I'm not the biggest fan of Paladin in like dungeons and such, because if the healer's bad, then I'm kinda stuck, even though the blocking makes it really good. This makes Paladin absolutely insane in like level 50 dungeons and such. Like, it's, like, I'm just saying, this means that the average potency of your 1-2 combo on AoE is 170 per target. As in, that used to be the peak. That's now the average. It's pretty crazy. Hey, Eudrit, hope you're doing well. The addition of Holy Circle also means that Paladin's AoE, just filler AoE, is a little bit more competitive with Gunbreaker's, but because of, what's it called, Fated Brand, Gunbreaker's filler AoE is a little insane. Not that that's super important. In an AoE pool at those levels, Paladin would, use this, which also got nerfed. Now, this is a little difficult to read because it feels like you're reading it, like, in reverse. What these mean is, on the first target, the exact potency listed is the damage done, obviously. And then it reduces the damage by 60%. Meaning it before did 50%, now it does 40%, because it's reduced by 60%. That means the entire Blades combo and Imperator and Confiteor got like a small nerf. Like, it's not gigantic. Let's see. Confiteor did, before the patch, 1000 potency to the main target and 500 potency to secondary targets. Now it does 1000 to the primary target and 400 to secondary targets. So it's pretty big, and all the other steps here got a similar nerf of, somewhere up to 100 potency nerf on AoE. Like, for instance, Imperator lost 58 AoE potency. Paladin definitely will do less AoE damage in like actual deliberate AoE encounters as well. But once you get to your filler, it's actually not that bad. Like, once you get to the point where you're doing this, it's actually better. So, extended AoE fights have been improved at the cost of your short term. Let's just take Warrior next. They actually also got like changes that actually do something, quote unquote. There's step 1s and step 3s got a like 20 potency boost. That doesn't change anything. You just got a potency boost. Upheaval also got a potency boost. What's weird there is that it's no longer like a clean, nice 400. It's 420, which I guess is almost better. Just like in terms of comedic effect. Your primal attacks, so Primal Rend, Primal Wrath, and Primal Ruination, got the opposite experience of the Paladin Blades combo. Which is to say, they went from doing 30% of the damage to secondary targets to doing 50%. Meaning, to take Primal Rend, for instance, before it did 210 potency to secondary targets. Now it does 350 to secondary targets. It's actually pretty wild. And this also applies to Primal Wrath and Primal Ruination. With Primal Ruination getting slightly more. Now, this didn't come for free, as Chaotic Cyclone just got, like, smashed into the ground. Just... Exactly, Daniel. It's a buff if the reduction percentage is reduced. But Chaotic Cyclone got nerfed pretty heavily. Now, this means a few things for Warrior. The first one is at max level, Chaotic Cyclone is now a gain on 4 targets instead of 3. That's the first thing. That's not particularly big of a deal, because Decimate was already a gain on 4, because Fell Cleave is just that good. The second thing this means for Warrior is exactly in the level range where you have Chaotic Cyclone, but not in a Chaos. So level 72 to 79. A lot of you probably, like, among those that care about Warrior, only some of you will care about this. But at actions that have an built-in automatic crit effect, such as Inner Chaos, Chaotic Cyclone, Primal Ruination, and Primal Rend, but not Fell Cleave with Inner Release. Attacks with a built-in guaranteed crit will also cause Bloodwedding's healing to automatically crit. Which means that at level 72 to 79, if for whatever reason you need more healing on a single target fight, then using Chaotic Cyclone instead of Fell Cleave, if you have it, means you'll guarantee the crit, which is safer than Fell Cleaving and hoping for it. This was more... it made more sense to do this before this change, because 300 potency guaranteed critical direct hit was slightly more potency, like converted, than a Fell Cleave that just hit. So the only difference between Chaotic Cyclone and Fell Cleave in that respect, in terms of raw damage, was that Fell Cleave would do more damage if you direct hit or crit. But Chaotic Cyclone guaranteed the heal, so like you had a little bit of a defensive-offensive choice here. Now, choosing to Chaotic Cyclone on one target is a massive damage loss in this level range. Exactly, remove. It's actually including Hallminster Switch, because you're level 72 there. But essentially this means that you can still make this decision, but the damage loss is much bigger, so you might feel less compelled to do that. My advice, I believe I gave in my Warrior Guide, was just Fell Cleave. If you're not sure, just Fell Cleave. But it is a thing you can consider, and this was nerfed. Next. Dark Knight. They gave it the same experience as Warrior, broadly speaking. They buffed the incidental, quote-unquote, AoE portions of Disesteem, Shadowbring, and Salt and Darkness quite substantially, 25%, which means, just as an example, that Shadowbringer went from doing 300 potency to secondary targets to doing 450 to secondary targets. And the same applies to the other two. Exactly, remove. But then, as the price for this is that Impalement was nerfed slightly from 320 to 300 flat. I would say, unlike the other two jobs, where like the nerf was probably bigger than the buff, and in the case of Warrior, the buff was actually in the case of Paladin, where the nerf was probably bigger than the buff, Dark Knight is more similar to Warrior in that the buff is bigger. And this doesn't matter. Like, Impalement getting that slight nerf doesn't matter when the other things you got buffed so hard. Like, I'm just saying, Disesteem does 250 more potency to secondary targets. Like, per minute, you're losing 60 potency here per additional target, and you're gaining 150 potency here per additional target. So it's not a big deal. He's off, and as I do, hope you're doing well. Now, lastly, among the tanks, we have Gunbreaker, who basically got a little bit less of a colossal difference in their I call it the Lionheart combo, but others call it the Reign of Beasts. Before, Reign of Beasts was 800 and Noble Blood was 1000, which meant that the full combo like combined together for a nice clean 3000 potency. Now, it's 3300. The significant part is that it sucks a bit less if you crit the first half and then like just hit the last bit. Like it's more evened out by pulling the two weaker parts higher up. It's like very simple. Gunbreaker got buffs. There's no discussion there. They straight up just got buffs, where the other tanks got some small mix, where two of them definitely got buffs, like overall, and one got a little bit of a nerf overall, and that one is Paladin. Next, let's hop to the ranged physicals. And hey, Cyril, hope you're doing well. We'll get to Black Mage last, because there's a lot to unpack. It would be unfair to everyone else if they had to sit through all of Black Mage. So Bard had a similar experience of like a little bit of a buff, a little bit of a nerf. Pitch Perfect, Resonant Arrow, and Radiant Encore got nerfed. As in, their secondary target damage was reduced from 50% to 45%. How big of a deal is it? Well, let's take Pitch Perfect. Can he find Pitch Perfect? There it is. 360 potency. Meaning, the secondary targets used to be 180 potency. Now it's 171 on the secondary targets. It's a really awkward number, but it's definitely like a clear nerf to secondary targets. The same applies to Resonant Arrow, which went from 300 to 285 to secondary targets, and Radiant Encore went from, let's see, 450 to something, let's see, 377.5? No, that's wrong. 422.5, I believe. Nope. I can't math. It's just 405. It's just 405. I think I managed to take 5% of 5% there or something. But Shadow Bite and Ladin's Bite got some buffs. I would say, given the amount of Ladin's Bites that a Bard will use in an AoE encounter, and the amount of Shadow Bites a Bard will use in an AoE encounter, I'm pretty sure that this might even out. But the 2-minute burst AoE components hurt a lot. The same for Pitch Perfect. My guess is that, so they decided, and this is something you may have already caught on to, on the other jobs, they've decided to like make the AoE components on each job uniform, as in all the actions with an AoE component on a given job has the same like damage drop off. And at the same time with Bard, they probably really want Pitch Perfect to still be best in any situation, because the reason Pitch Perfect has an AoE component is so that Mage's Ballad can no longer compete with it. Like, that was kind of the point, as far as I know, or as far as I could at least determine. So if they nerf Pitch Perfect's AoE component too hard, then Reign of Death becomes too good, relatively speaking, and then Mage's Ballad is better on AoE, and let's just say that was a huge headache for dungeon optimization for Bards in Endwalker. So I'm guessing that's it. Also, hey, Lord Alex, hope you're doing well. I would say that the one that got the big nerf was Pictomancer, but we'll get to that. Does Bard AoE at 2 targets? They actually already, without these buffs, wanted to use Ladon's Bite on 2 targets over Burst Shot. And they already wanted to use Shadow Bite on 2 targets over Refulgence, so this doesn't change anything. Definitely, probably more of a nerf than a buff for Bard, in this case. Hey Lucifer, hope you're doing well. Next we have Machinist, who got some strange changes. And actually it is the one where they decided to not make it fully uniform after all. Isn't that hilarious, after I just said it? So, Machinist got a ton of incidental AoE buffs. And then a few pinpoint accurate mega nerfs to their sustained AoE. Let me put it like this. I have since Endwalker and up to now said that Machinist in low-level duties is like when you're so low level where like AoE is kind of coming at a premium, like when melee still don't have AoEs and such. Machinist was the god of AoE because Spread Shot was 140 potency out the box, just 140 potency, like at a level where Black Mage, we'll get to that, had like, I don't know, like 104 potency on Fire 2 with Astral Fire 1 and a 3-second cast time. Machinist is like, why are you trying so hard? Just shoot! This change, I would say, makes it so that Dancer is the king of low-level AoE instead. And we'll get to that in a moment. The other thing this means, specifically both the Spread Shot nerf and the Scattergun nerf, and also the fact that Scattergun does not get a potency boost from the Marksman's Mastery 2, which means that at level 100, Scattergun is just 130. And Auto Crossbow stays 160. What this means is that, let me put it like this. Flamethrower got a buff from 80 potency to 100 potency somewhat recently. If they had just done this change, this one right now, then Flamethrower would have been okay with the range buff that it got. Just because when they made the potency 100, they also increased the range from 8 to 12, making it equal to Scattergun and Auto Crossbow, which was like the bigger problem. But basically, before this change, Scattergun and Auto Crossbow sort of averaged out to an 80 potency per second situation. Now it's less than that. Flamethrower was 80 potency per second. Now it's 100. So, long story short, Flamethrower is really good now at all levels if you can line it up. If you can aim it, then it's really good. Use Flamethrower, especially right when you unlock it. It's at level 70, it's insanely good for AoE. It's 1000 potency over 10 seconds. 250 potency per GCD, essentially. That's really good. That's really good. Aside from that, the other changes here, the chainsaw, excavator, and full metal field changes, don't really do anything. You're going to use them anyway. Like it doesn't change anything. You're going to use them anyway. Double check and checkmate being buffed hilariously means that auto crossbow is a gain on 6. Because blazing shot is that good that it wins on 5. Ain't that fantastic? That's of course when you have double check and checkmate. At this point, might as well. See, that's the funny thing is that I feel like if they made it so auto crossbow straight up just also reduce the cooldown on double check and checkmate, it might be a little too strong. But they could at least give it something. Like, just make it reduce the cooldown a little less or something. I don't know. This is ridiculous. Also, hey Aaron, and Caetsu, and Azova. Hope you're doing well. Gain on 6 sounds psychotic for a ranged DPS. It's really weird. Machinist is really weird though. Like, they have an attack that they want to use on cooldown, but it's single target. And they have a cooldown that's kind of good, but it's only for AoE. And then they have this. Lord Alex says Machinist is dead ×2, or is it? I don't, like, Machinist is fine. The problem with Machinist is that by design, it just doesn't do that whole 2-minute burst song and dance as well as other jobs. But Machinist is really good out of the box. It plays really well just as it is. The problem is that it just doesn't scale as well as some of the other jobs, but it's fine. It's actually because of access to dismantle, it's really good on prog when you're progging in a less, like, super optimized group, where you might not be as good at aligning your 2-minute bursts and whatnot. Machinist is really good because Machinist doesn't care as much as other jobs. Like, the whole problem with Machinists in that regard is that they basically have to invent a 2-minute burst. They have to, like, go into the lab and, like, concoct a 2-minute burst, because they don't have one, really. They just have a bunch of cooldowns in a big mesh. Isn't this a nerf for Machinist lower level AoE? Yes, it is. That's actually what I led with CJ. I'm guessing you came in after that. Is that I used to say, and I said this for ages, that Machinist was the god king of low-level AoE. It isn't anymore. It's really good, but it's not the king anymore. That's also true, Ham. If you hold your battery gauge or some hypercharge, you can react to a rate buff. Say Shizuma, hope you're doing well. And Antauri, Antauri? To your question, Antauri, I have a Black Mage guide in the works. I'm also thinking of remaking the Viper guide. I actually had that on the table for a while, but I waited until 7.2 just in case they changed it again. Skunk and Mayo, hope you're doing well. Exactly, Mayo. It's still fine. It's just Spreadshot was insanely good at low level. Now it's just good, which is, I would say that's okay. Like, that's okay. Like, that is a discipline that Machinists didn't need to be some sort of god king at. Like, that's okay. At higher levels, these things are buffs, mostly. In fact, I heard the argument that if you're using Flamethrower aggressively enough, the fact you don't that Scattergun is nerfed is probably not that big of a deal, especially put next to all these other things. Hey Bits, hope you're doing well, and Rob Gero, hope you're doing well as well. It's like 12 in the morning for me, Rob Gero. Speaking of God King of AoE in low levels, Dancer. Essentially, whenever I've talked about this low level AoE situation, Machinist has usually won over Dancer because even though standard finish is really good, it's like you get one and like while the big damage is on one target, the AoE component is relatively and the 5% damage bonus from standard finish helps, but Windmill was 100 potency while Spreadshot was 140. So Machinist would like be behind right when the pull starts and then would take over by just going shoot gun. Now, Windmill is stronger than Spreadshot. And you also have standard finish that now has a smaller damage drop-off, meaning standard finish does more damage to secondary targets. And just to clarify on this, some of you might have looked at this and gone, what is happening here? If you... Basically, the first line is if you do this. That's standard finish. Single standard finish if you do one step, and double standard finish is if you do two steps. Which means this one is the only one that matters. Right? There's also a buff to Blade Shower. So let's continue through that. If we take them step by step. Okay, I know my face is in the way, so I'm trying to keep an overview for you. Windmill is better on 2 targets than Cascade. So step 1 is a gain on 2. Blade Shower is a gain on 2 over its single target equivalent. Rising Windmill is a gain on 2. And Blood Shower is a gain on 2. So basically now, if there's any sort of multi-target and you can hit more than one target, you just don't use your single target rotation. You just use the AoE buttons instead. The only exception being that Fan Dance 1... No, wait, Fan Dance 2 is also a gain on 2. So, yep. The moment there's more than one target, you just use your AoE rotation instead. In addition to that, standard finish, technical finish, and finishing move got their AoE components buffed from doing 75% less to secondary targets to doing 60% less to secondary targets. So they do 40% of the listed damage to secondary target instead of a fourth. So it's a little bit better. All the other things here are nerfs. All of these other things are nerfs. So Fan Dance 3 does less AoE, Saber Dance does less AoE, Tilana does less AoE, Fan Dance 4 does less AoE, Last Dance does less AoE, Dance of the Dawn does less AoE. I would imagine in a cleave situation, this is a loss. So, given how bursty Dancer is, what you'll probably experience is that on the first AoE pull where you go smash on all of your cooldowns, things might die a teensy tiny bit slower thanks to your efforts as the Dancer. On the second pull where you don't have 2-minute cooldowns, things will probably die a little bit faster because you're much more reliant on these things that got buffed. And there's also the part that technical finish and finishing move and standard finish got a little bit of an AoE buff, so maybe it evens out. So it's it's probably a slight nerf to Dancer in cleave fights when we at the end of the day. Also, hey, I hope you're doing well. It sounds like you're not. That's true, Gazel. It was just me having a brain fart moment. I looked at this and thought, well, if we times that by 2, then this, and then remembering that, no, this is a single target action. Like, I just remembered that I don't have to multiply everything by 2. Next, we go to the melee DPS. Hey, Seraph, hope you're doing well. Would it be better to not use Saber Dance and Trash Pools even in Burst? Oh, no. You should still use Saber Dance on AoE, Gazel. It's only 50... No, wait. It's only 52 potency weaker on AoE. It's still, like, 208 potency on secondary targets. Like, it still beats Blood Shower. Like, you should use your buttons just the same. It's just that it's slightly weaker now. Hey, Space Queen. Hope you're doing well. Next, we take the melees. Well, there's a bunch here. Monk? I would say just straight up wins on this, like just got mega buffs. The key thing that stands out among them is that Enlightenment is no longer equal to the Forbidden Chakra on 2. It's a gain on 3. The thing is, you probably weren't going to use Enlightenment on 2 anyway, so this basically changes nothing on 2 targets and is a clear nerf on 3+ targets. Everything else is mega buffs. Like, let me put it like this. And we're probably parking the Uwu prog stuff for a while now with 7.2, but Milo, our monk, in our lineup said, I will probably have to change my opener in the Garuda phase so I don't just kill the feather too fast. Because this is insanely big buffs. Elixir Field and Flint Strike basically do twice the AoE damage they did before. The same for Rising Phoenix and Elixir Burst, of course. Tornado Kick and Phantom Rush only like slightly more AoE component, but basically the first 2 Masterful Blitzes basically do double the AoE damage they did before. Ridiculous buff, like insanely high. But it also means that all of your AoE components are all 40% less damage instead of some mix. Additionally, Wind's Reply and Fire's Reply just got some damage buffs. Just on top. Like, in addition to their AoE component getting buffed, they also straight up just do more damage now. So, like, I mean, monks, you got a slight nerf to your Enlightenment Kamehameha Blast, and everything else is good. I'm pretty sure that this is just high fives all around for monks. Machinist got, like, a nerf at low-level AoE of Ghetto, and a buff to their incidental AoE at higher level. So it's like a mix. Dragoon also just got buffs. Drakesbane, that's their step 5. Heaven's Thrust is the step 3, is one of their step 3s. And Stardiver is the one they get once per minute. All 3 just got like small potency boosts. Exactly how much this means, hard to say, but I would estimate that it's like 100, maybe a bit more potency per minute you're gaining out of this. It's not anything big, but apparently Dragoon was fine. Ninja. Oh, this is also one of the weirder ones, I think. Oh no, they also seem to have gotten mostly buffs. Let's take it from the top. Aeolian Edge and Armor Crush, which is their combo finishers, got a 20 potency buff. Just randomly a 20 potency buff. Hey Jason, hope you're doing well. Hakemujin Sats, which is their AoE combo finisher, got a slight nerf. Gotta be honest with you, in AoE pulls, I don't feel like ninjas use this ability that much. Like, they get to it eventually, especially on the AoE pulls where they don't have Tenchijin and stuff like that. But usually Hakemujin Satsu is accompanied by Holonozuchi. So it's like a nerf from 180 to 170 potency, so relatively speaking, it's an even smaller nerf. So it's not that big. With that said, Dokomori no longer has damage drop-off. Like, basically, I can't even remember what his damage drop-off was, but it went from something to nothing. So that's a buff. Bhava Chakra also got a little 20 potency buff, just like Aeolian Edge and Armor Crush, and Bhava Chakra is a single target action. Something that is worth pointing out here is that Seisho Meppo is a separate action and it was not buffed. Which means that basically, when you use Bhava Chakra, you got a buff. When you're using Dokomori to then use Seisho Meppo, there's not a buff, because Seisho Meppo did not get buffed. Like, just a really weird little wrinkle here, which will come up again in a second. Finally, on the AoE department, actually that's not finally, in regards to incidental AoE, okay, good to know it, Arid. So it got the same kind of buff as these other things. Phantom Kamaitachi, which is once per 90 seconds, Kunai's Bane, which is once per minute, and Tenri Jindo, which is what you can use after Tenchi Jin, so once every 2 minutes, all basically got 25% more AoE damage. So just to take one example here, Tenri Jindo did 550 AoE before. Now it does 775 AoE. So, big buff. Again, relative to that, I don't think Hakemujin Satsu's nerf matters at all. Now, Death Frog Medium got nerfed. This is the same important detail with Higi, which you get from Dokomori, is that it's Death Frog Medium that got nerfed. Hell Frog Medium was unchanged. So it made it so Death Frog Medium is 100 potency more per target than Hell Frog Medium instead of 140 more. I think that the buffs even this out, given that, just for instance, Tenri Jindo is 225 per target gain. And Death Frog Medium is just loss 40. And it's both 2-minute cooldowns, so like net, Ninja got big buffs. Lord Alex's free trial can't join a free company, that's correct. That is not possible, unfortunately. Next we have Samurai, which is another one that got a little back and forth. Let's start with the buffs. Oki Namikiri, Kaishi Namikiri, Zanjin, Showa, Tendo Setsugeka, and Tendo Kaishi Setsugeka got potency buffs. With the exception that Showa did not get any potency buffs, it instead just got a damage drop-off buff. And they buffed all of those AoE component attacks to the same point, which means that Ogenamikiri and Kaishi got the biggest buff, whereas Showa and Sanjin got a smaller buff because they were closer to 50% in the first place. The nerfs then are Kyuten and Gurin. Kyuten is your no cooldown spender for AoE, and Gurin is your 1-minute cooldown spender for AoE. Crossworld Link Shell bits. Hey Harry and Liv, hope you're doing well. Gurin is a little bit strange. But something that is worth mentioning here, I suppose, is that before the change, Gurin was better than Zene on 3 targets. That's still true. That's still true. Kyuten was better than Shinten on 3 targets before. That's still true. And the rest is like, you're doing this anyway. Like, you're using Zanjin anyway. You're using Setsugeka anyway. You're using Ogenamikiri anyway. You're using Showa anyway. So all of these other ones are just straight up buffs. Especially on cleave scenarios. Because on 2 targets you weren't using these anyway. So this is a buff to single target and 2 targets and more targets than that. And this is a nerf to 3+ targets specifically. Next we have Reaper, which got a single target buff to their Enshroud. I don't see that's Caetsu added anywhere. Yeah, still no Caetsu. They also got the AoE components unified. They're all 40%, which is a big buff to Perfectio, a big buff to Communio, a big buff to Plentiful Harvest, and a little bit smaller buff to Harvest Moon, but a buff to Harvest Moon as well. It doesn't really change anything how you play, but it's a buff on Cleave and a buff on AoE. Sacrificium also got that buff, by the way. And Sacrificium also just straight up got potency buffs. So every Enshroud got somewhere in the ballpark of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4... 230 extra potency. Just every Enshroud. And then also like a small extra bonus on AoE. Every Gluttony on AoE got a nerf because Executioner's Guillotine got nerfed. It is actually pretty substantial. Whoops. Because it means that Executioner's Guillotine is like 30% stronger than regular Guillotine, where it used to be 50% stronger. That probably makes sense, considering that the single target versions don't get like a 50% potency boost, they just get like a decent potency boost. And then, finally, the AoE filler combo for Reaper got nerfed as well. So, in situations where you're stuck just doing scythes like that on AoE, sucks. Tip from me to you on dungeons as Reaper. If you're having trouble forgetting it, or having trouble and forgetting it, this change means that it is even more important that as you run from pack to pack, you do this one. Like, basically, you don't have to lead with Harvest Moon, but you want to make sure you enter every pull with Harvest Moon, and that you use it at some point in every AoE pull, because it's that good on AoE. Hey Luna and Cat, hope you're doing well. I haven't gotten to Black Mage yet, but if you really can't wait, I did put patch notes summaries in my Black Mage guides already. So that might hopefully tide you over until I get to making a guide on it. Overall, looks like buffs for Reaper overall again, but its filler is a little bit weaker on AoE. And then finally on the melees we have Viper, which basically just got a 160 potency boost on every Reawaken. That's it. Not super huge. Just Viper buffs. And then we skip quickly to the simple ones. Summoner and Red Mage. Summoner got a little bit of a single target boost on Necrotize. Does that change anything for Summoner? Yes, it does. Necrotize being 460 means that Pain Flare is a gain on 4 now instead of 3. Before you get Necrotize, so you just have Fester, Pain Flare is still a gain on 3. Exodus is this one. You're using that anyway, so it's just a slight cleave buff and a single target buff. Red Mage's Vice of Thorns and Prefulgence are both attacks with an AoE component, so that's just cleave buffs and single target buffs. Just buffs all around. And then, let's start with Pictomancer, because it's a little less than what Black Mage got, but it's still a lot. So, because of all these traits, it makes it really difficult to read, but the long story short is that your filler combos, so the water and blue combo, the water 2 and blue combo, the Blizzard and Cyan combo, the Blizzard 2 and Cyan combo, like the whole thing got buffs. Holy and White was buffed so that it matches water and blue, but as you can see here, that snuck in here, it got an AoE component nerf. And actually a lot of things got those nerfs. Combat in Black was also buffed to match, I believe, Thunder and Magenta. Yep. But its AoE component got nerfed. The rest is big oof for Pictomancer. Palm Muse, Wing Muse, Claw Muse, Fang Muse, Mark of the Ages and Retribution of the Madine, and Star Prism got 300 potency nerfs. Just each one, just all of them, just 300 potency down each. They're probably still worth using, but wow. A says, what's up with all the AoE nerfs? Some jobs did particularly impressive cleave damage, which was relevant in the recent Ultimate, which made those jobs do particularly well just because there were 2 targets. That's why some jobs got buffs to that and other jobs got nerfs to that. The ones that were falling behind on cleave got buffs, the ones that were ahead got nerfs. And that, of course, leads to the last thing that got nerfed, which on Pictomancer, which is Hammer Stamp, Hammer Brush, and Polishing Hammer. They got nerfed 80, 100, and 120 potency nerfs. Oh, that's no big deal, Sam. There were other jobs that could do it. Nowadays, I'm pretty sure. But sure, it probably helps to have done it now. From what I can find, and this might still be too early to call it, but from what I can find, the nerfs to Hammer means that it might actually not be worth painting like the hammer motif on full uptime fights, which means it's like something you do when there's downtime. I'm not 100% sure, but it seems like either it's actually bad or it barely breaks even, so there's no need to. The problem is, of course, that basically the thing I mentioned about Chaotic Cyclone and Fell Cleave on Warrior earlier is that in that level 72 to 79 range, before the Chaotic Cyclone nerf, Chaotic Cyclone was like a smidge better than Fell Cleave in that level range if Fell Cleave didn't crit and didn't direct it. But if Fell Cleave did either, it was significantly better. I'm pretty sure that the problem here is the same. It's just that it's 3 hits, not 1. I know, right, Raven? I know, right? Also, hey, Leah. Hope you're doing well. And Steelstorm and Raven. Now we have the nerf, I guess. For those that then might say, so what do I do in my burst? I believe what you do is try to cram in as much subtractive palette as you can. There is, of course, also the argument that the fact hammer motif is not worth using in uptime, like full uptime fights, potentially. I'm just trying to leave the door open. That maybe it's not that bad and we've jumped to conclusions. There's also the possibility that a hotfix will come that buffs it back up, and then you watch this in a VOD later and go, what? He's an idiot. The fact that you don't want to use this on full uptime would also mean that Pictomancer essentially already, or rather always, would have hammer motif as something you could swift cast weave while you reposition, and then the next time you have to reposition, well, you have triple cast, right? You striking muse, donk donk. Like, it's salvageable, but this nerf was probably too hard. It's probably a little bit too much. But part of the problem here is that they buffed the filler combos and nerfed this thing that basically takes up filler combo. Hey Bokaj, hope you're doing well, and Raphael. It's a nerf, Lord Alex. Pictomancer got giga nerfed. Like they basically took that hammer that it summons and just went kaboom. And then they happen to hit the hammer itself the hardest. And yeah, that's also what I observed, Ham, is that if hammers are so bad, then that means subtractive is really good, which means that there might be justification for some spell speed on Pictomancer. But Pictomancer's pushing against itself on this, because the motifs themselves, these three, in combat, they take 3 seconds to cast and have a GCD of 4 seconds, and for some reason they don't scale with spell speed. So Pictomancer has a negative synergy with spell speed in this particular aspect, or rather not negative, it has a non-synergy with spell speed, which means that it scales worse with spell speed, and that of course also means that Hammer Motif scales worse with spell speed. So it's just icing on this cake. The hammer's turned into one of those squeaky toy hammers? Yeah, pretty much. So, for those that hoped that Pictomancer got nerfed, there you go. And also, I'm basically I can see the future. I made that the cursed job changes video, and I basically said this would happen in that video. Oops. Which then finally leads us to Black Mage. And there's a bit of a bunch of things. One, Astral Fire and Umbral Ice no longer have timers. At all. 2. Thunderhead no longer has a timer. 3. Firestarter no longer has a timer. 4. Most of your spells now have a 2-second cast time. Once you start having a lot of instant cast options, this basically means you can move a little bit better. But you still have to, like, if you want to weave a thing, you still have to use an instant to do that, because a spell with a 2-second cast time actually takes 2.1 seconds to resolve, and the weave of doing a thing takes like 0.6 seconds to do with minimal latency. So that means it still takes 2.7 seconds to do a thing and a weave, not 2.5. So you'd still want to do that, but at low level, where you have, Blizzard, Fire, Thunder, and Transpose, the fact that you can transpose in the middle of the cast is actually kind of nice, because it means that, like, while you don't, like, I could, like, in my guide, I was like, well, I mean, if you can use Thunder to weave it, it's a little nicer, but it's a DPS loss, actually. Like, optimally, you didn't really want to do that. Now, you still don't really want to do it like that, but just weaving Transpose after the last Fire 1 is much less of a loss. Like, it's way less of a loss. So that's pretty good, I guess. Now, the spells that had their cast times reduced are Blizzard, Fire, Fire 4, and Blizzard 4, Freeze, and Flare, and Foul when you're lower level, and Flare Star. So the spells that still have weirdly long cast times, relatively speaking now, is Blizzard 3, Fire 3, Fire 2, and Blizzard 2. Everything else is either instant or 2-second cast. So Black Mage is a lot speedier on its rotation now. One more change is that Paradox no longer gives, like, it no longer refreshes and adds to the Astral Fire and Umbral Ice thing, which means that I am at Umbral Ice 1 now. I'm still at Umbral Ice 1 now. It's... it was something that matters for more non-standard stuff and some recovery strategies, but without the timer, you're probably not going to need those recovery strategies, and F for the non-standard strategies that involve this, I suppose. What this means for Black Mage is a few peculiar things. Where would you use fire after learning Fire Fallen, now that you no longer need to use it to upkeep Astral Fire? You wouldn't. There is one particular case where you would. Let's say that the boss is at, like, it's going to phase change, but it's at 0.1% HP and you can't kill it. Like, it's basically just sitting there stalling you, and you just, like, you can build resources if you like. Then you could do this until you get a Firestarter proc. And then you do this. And this. And then you wait. So that you're fully ready. But once you get Paradox, I mean, the way you would do that is, you know, you just do this. Boom, Firestarter into ice. And there you go. But that's specifically in the level range of 60 to 89, where you don't have Paradox. That's it. Free cure, but it's Firestarter? When is it better to stock up mana and ice instead of staying in fire? I don't understand quite what you mean, Steelstorm. You enter Astral Fire, and then you stay in Astral Fire until you don't have any more MP. You just hang out in fire until you're done. One trick you can use, I'm going to use the Firestarter proc to demonstrate it because I'm like out of MP now, but one trick you can use for a very slight damage gain now is if you have Swift Cast or you have a triple cast to spare, for instance, you can, after an instant, Swift Cast Transpose Blizzard 3 for a very slight damage gain over casting Blizzard 3 from fire. So, like this. Otherwise, like, it's the same. You just do this thing. Also, guys, that goes both to Bondi and A and others with that same kind of doom posting mentality. Can you stop with that? We've been listening to it for over a week now. We heard you. We're just trying to make the most of the pieces, alright? Bring something positive. Doesn't help now. I can't change it. Skunkwitch says, as someone who has never played Black Mage, am I dumb in thinking no timers and less cast time is good? No, you're not. The problem is it's complicated. To just explain why a lot of Black Mages are mad is let's say, imagine your main. I'm going to heavily exaggerate to bring the point across. Imagine your main job. Don't care what it is. They now made it, and this is heavily exaggeration, they made it so that the entire rotation is one button. Like, you just do the most damage by just pressing one. It looks cool while you do that. Like, it just flips through the rotation for you. Just mash one. It's better. But it doesn't feel better, right? It feels like now it's just stupid. Like, another way you could view it is, imagine if you're playing through a game and then they remove the hard difficulty. Like, they just remove the hard difficulty. Like, the game is the same, but they remove the hard difficulty while you were playing it. That's the kind of reason why they're mad. But broadly speaking, Black Mage is easier to pilot now. Does Black Mage now need the spell speed it used to? It doesn't need any spell speed now. From what I could see from what the people at the balance was cooking. And they also managed to do that without screaming brain dead, by the way. Is that spell speed seems to be a more preference choice. So you figure out how much spell speed you want. But crit is also great. Now, can you do a quick rotation so we can see how it looks like now? Yes, I can, Joker. Let me just reset. So the opener, first of all, is a little different. Only mildly. Here you can weave your gem draft. Here we don't finish with Despair because we need that Fire 4. One Flare Star. Here we will also not use Paradox because we need that Fire 4. And then we refresh Thunder. We can also put down another ley lines here. And Flare Star and Despair. And then you could, you know, triple cast into Blizzard 3 here if you don't need it. Of course, this makes this a little awkward because there's no timer, it doesn't matter. And then you just go through. And because you don't need to refresh the timer, you can hold Paradox until it's the last thing you need to do, so you can use it for mobility whenever you want. Just like you can do with Despair. We have a Swift cast at Blizzard 3 here. And then we have AF1 F3P Standard, which still exists. Does Ice Paradox still hold any value except give a weave to transpose? Ice Paradox does the same damage as Fire 4 in Astral Fire 3. So Ice Paradox is just straight up good damage. I didn't mean to do it like that. Anyway, I'm also done with the demonstration. Is Chalk Buff really faster than Peloton? As far as I can see, it's equal to Peloton. DJ Greggy says, would the guaranteed crit still keep Hammer viable? From what people can see, Hammer is worse when you consider that you have to paint it. Hey Sally, hope you're doing well. if Sokran says fire paradox is useless even with the potency increase. Did you see me? Did you not see me use paradox in every astral fire just now, Sokran? Or were you just not paying attention to the demonstration? Fire paradox. Okay. Math time. Fire 4 does 300 potency. With 80% more than that, that's 540. Okay, 540. Paradox just does 540, just straight. So Paradox is better because it's instant and free in ice, and it gives you a fire starter on fire. So Paradox is great. The only time you don't use Paradox is in the opener, because in the opener you need 12 fire 4s, and you have the MP for exactly 12 fire 4s. Don't worry, Sokran. Sorry, got a little heated there. It's just exactly as Raphael says. It's just because the first Astral Fire in your opener doesn't have the MP, so the second, the Mana Font one, has to sacrifice a Paradox to make it work. Is the second Flare Star still in buff? I don't think so. But it's still 900 potency with Astral Fire included. It's crazy strong. A funny thing though, it's going to be a little hard for me to demonstrate because, you know, I'm level 100. But I discovered a really funny optimization for level 50 Black Mage AoE. From what I could put together with my own spreadsheeting, this is peak performance level 50 Black Mage AoE rotation, which wins on 2 targets. Consider that you don't have Umbral Hearts, so my MP is going to be wrong. But other than that, the rotation is accurate. Yes, the slow cast. And yet, I do recognize there's a GCD clip there every time. It's better with it. I mean, you can do this, like, when you need to reapply Thunder, you can do it like this, and then just continue onward. I tried to combine various ways and even asked for clarification from other Black Mages, and they were like, no, that looks right to me. We couldn't come up with anything better than that. Just straight to Flare, yes. And you don't even need Blizzard. You don't even need Blizzard at level 50. And then, you know, at level 58, when you get Umbral Hearts, you can do it like this. The reason why the high, like the Fire 2 is there is mainly because you're kind of low on good instants. So, like, it's only once you get instant fouls that you have enough instants on speed dial that you can, you know, back and forth more nicely. But it's because of the short cast times, it's fine. And there's also the part that if you could, like, you could also do, like, Thunder and then drink a Super ETH and then Flare again. But yeah, basically, Black Mage Transpose Flare is now level 50 rotation. Lord Alex says, how do you use Transpose? Frequently. You use it when you need to switch in certain circumstances. It's hard to explain. Oh yeah, and also on 2 targets specifically, just to be clear, on 2 targets specifically, you might want to, you know, you could use Blizzard 3 to get out of Flare instead. Or you could transpose Blizzard 1. No, you wouldn't. You would use Freeze. Never mind. What does max level AoE look like now? The same as before the patch? Yep, pretty much. this triple cast is superfluous. It's basically... And you just loop that. But that is also a funny thing about it. Oh, I shouldn't have used Thunder there. Oh well. The funny thing is that most of those kind of tricks that we figured out still work. They're just even better now. And unnecessary. But yeah. I'm going to be playing through the MSQ today, later, and the new raid on Black Mage as I am able. So I will at least give it a chance. I've also agreed with my raid team that I will be playing Black Mage, which means someone else is tanking. So again, I'm giving it a chance. I'm going to give it a try. So that's at least somewhere where you can see some Black Mage gameplay, I guess. Tulip says, when is it better to use Blizzard 2? When you don't have freeze or flare, then it is alright for like I believe it's 3 targets plus. Once you get it. That also applies to fire too. But once you get flare, like when you have freeze, you'll basically go Blizzard 2, freeze, and then into fire. Once you get flare, you just don't use Blizzard because flare's that good. The thing is, Leah, I play so many different jobs that it makes no difference to me. As long as I don't choose... Like, I have said that there are some jobs that I'm not good at, and I wouldn't choose any of those. Why does the clock on the job gauge still tick? Even though the timers are gone? Because this isn't the timer. This is a different timer. This is the polyglot timer. How can I demonstrate that? This is Thaumaturge. That's how the gauge looks on Thaumaturge. Out of combat, polyglots feel weird? Yeah, I guess. You know what feels even weirder? Just hanging out in Astral Fire. just hanging out with permanent fire orbs spinning you. That's weird. Are the changes DPS loss or a gain? People that have investigated even closer than me, Tulip, says that the Black Mage changes seem to be a net gain of about 1% gain, which is interesting to consider when that's accompanied by this, which means if they hadn't done this, then it would have been like a 5 or 6% gain, I think? Something like that? Now, I did promise we'd also take a little look at the PvP changes before we round off. And see, I chose to finish with Black Mage because it was going to take like 10 times longer than any other job. So between pulls, do you use Umbral Soul to top up, then transpose and chill in fire? You could do that. You could do... Well... You could do that. I'm not sure. Honestly, I would imagine, like, if you're running from pack to pack, you'd probably run into a battle like this, because if you enter a fight like this, that's not good, and it's not easy to, like, max that one out from this position. So it's probably better on AoE, like the reason why you don't even want to consider high fire is because it's slow. Like, that was the problem at level 50. But in this position, like, as the tank is, like, you know, rounding up the last mobs, like, you can't hit everything with AoE yet, you can just, you know, do this. And then you get, like, a big, meaty Astral Fire 3 flare to open with, right? But once you're going, you're not going to do that again. Like, you just, like, now you're at Umbral Ice 1, it's too costly to get to Umbral Ice 3. For single target... Again, you would probably open with something like Thunder Up. Paradox is great. And if you don't have a fire starter from a previous fight, you just have to do it like this. And then you just get going. So, regardless of what you're doing, you will probably prefer to start an Umbral Ice 3. What melee DPS do you think will be number 1 in this patch? I have no idea. Right, so the PvP changes. A lot of AoE, specifically AoEs that are centered on the player, got their AoE increased their radius from 5 to 6 yalms. And you can see it on Paladin, Warrior, Dark Knight, Gunbreaker, Monk. I think it's just like a universal change. Viper has it. Dancer has something. Black Mage has something. So it's just like a little small thing. There's also some weird, like small things like Summoner's Summons having a shorter attack delay. Looks like a tooltip or a change to Scholar's Seraphism. Let's take the significant parts as we go. Monks can now dash to alliance members. Which means that they can now choose to, like, you can dash to someone who's not in your specific party, which is nice. Machinist Marksman Spite does more damage. Nice. I'll say, yummy wummy. Hope you're doing well. Black Mage can ethereal manipulation to people that are not in their party. That is a huge quality of life thing as well. Scholar's Limit Break now pulses out, when used, a basically Warden's Paean, like remove a debuff, or when a debuff is applied, it'll remove it within 20 seconds. Astrologian's basically Hell's Ingress Reaper's thing got nerfed. It has a longer cooldown now, which is probably fair. I believe Astrologian is still a bit busted. Meanwhile, Sage's Icarus can now target other players in their party and has a shorter cooldown, which is nice. And also, Phlegm and Toxicon have shorter cooldowns, so that's also nice. Then, we also have new role actions. Basically, and this actually used to be a thing in PvP as well, back in the day. Now, you can choose one role action among 3. And each role has different options. So let's go through them. Tanks can do an AoE attack that makes the enemies take more damage for a while. With a cooldown. They straight up have Rampart, which is way stronger in PvP because it kind of has to. But it also has a little bit of a longer cooldown. Like, this is actually pretty huge for engaging big battles in frontline, because you can actually just use that as you run in and you might actually be alright. 50% damage reduction. And then, we of course have Full Swing, which is hilarious. Does damage. It's also OGCD, by the way. And then it removes guard from the target and then just clonks them 30 yums across the way. To try and put into perspective what 30 yums look like. Can I even do that? Can I even do that? From where I stand to the striking dummy over there is 30 arms. So you just clonk them out of the battle. Just isn't 30 max range on attacks? 30 is max range on most supportive actions. And Asylum has a radius of 15, so diameter of 30. So you just knock them completely out. For melees, this, I think, is going to be particularly handy for Vipers, potentially? In frontline, I imagine, possibly. Because a problem for some melees is that when they're going crazy, they die because they don't have time to heal themselves. This is particularly a problem for Vipers. Just straight up 100% healing from attacks. You also have the ability to just run away. That is actually interesting. Melee DPS can choose to basically have an extra Purify with a huge speed boost on top. Physical attack. That's true, it's physical attacks, but I don't think Viper has any magical attacks. So this sucks for Ninja. And Reaper, possibly. And then Smite is also here. With only 15-second cooldown, that is actually pretty brutal. Just every 15 seconds, you can just thwack someone. So this is like a kill securing move. That's also really good. I feel like this is pretty weak for Ninja as well. Because if the opponent is low enough that this gets maximum value, you could just LB them. For physical ranged, Smite into Ninja LB, that could be, but the problem is that Smite does 6,000, scaling up to 18,000 when the target is at 25%. So if you do that, like if you try to hit someone from like 60% down, like the damage of Smite is going to be bad for securing a kill for Ninja. Does Dark Knight have PvP spells? Yes, but they don't have Bloodbath. I believe they have some magic damage. I believe this does magic damage? Yeah, unexpected damage. And this is unexpected damage, so they do magic. Physical ranged has straight up just 25% damage up and 20%... They basically have a mix of a damage buff and a defensive cooldown with 33% uptime. If a machinist uses this before their limit break, presumably that would do 50,000 damage. And if you can set this up as well, then it could do 60,000. If you can chainsaw into bravery, into limit break, and do 60,000 damage straight. Analysis chainsaw, to be specific. Alternatively, you can use this, which is a raid buff. Well, from what I can see, it's a speed boost. It's expedient, and a damage and a cooldown and a GCD reduction for yourself. It doesn't seem like this cooldown, like the GCD reduction, affects others. You can also use this. Like combine this with your Machinist limit break. That could actually lead to even more damage, I think. You set up chainsaw, so the limit break does 48,000, and this does like 14.4, so it would be 62.4 thousand if you do them combined. The problem is that... No, wait, is that a problem? The problem is that you would only have 40 arms of range to work with instead of 50 to do this. But you would be in range for chainsaw already if you're doing it like this. But yeah, that's also pretty funny. You can also combine this with an analysis drill. Just 30k through a guard. Fun. And for the magical DPS, it's a little bit like all the mages get some sort of version of lethargy, where it just reduces output of a target for a bit. Exactly, only 40. They also get Phantom Dart. Fun fact, they used to have this. Like, back in the day, this was a PvP role action. And it works the same as the tank's Rampage, but it's single target, shorter, but also has a much shorter cooldown. So you can basically set this up as you deliver, I don't know, Flare Star. And then they have Comet. Which is strange. 20k damage, like that's actually like pretty crazy good. For just like AoE when you want it. But it specifically stipulates that you cannot move while casting it, and you also can't cancel it. Which, when I read it, thought, that's going to be a long cast, isn't it? And then it's just a regular GZD. Yes, we can, Bits. Oh. Oh, that's important. Black Mage's cast time is shorter. I expected that to be bigger, but it did say 10 yards. That was pretty fast. Also, I liked the staff spin. Oh. People can see what PvP, what role action you've picked. They spin the LB staff. Looks cool. And then, finally, we have the healer role actions, which are pretty interesting. Alright, Jack, enjoy your day. And hey, Jose, hope you're doing well. I don't quite understand what you mean, Bondi. How would that give you extra flare uses per fight? Every time you exit Astral Fire, you lose your Astral Soul stacks? Right, so role actions for healers. For some reason, they all have a way to reduce healing received on someone and also does damage, and it's actually an AoE. Hey Alejandro, hope you're doing well. They have Stone Skin, which is AoE. Yeah, I got that, Bondi. You lose your Astral Soul stacks when you leave Astral Fire, so it wouldn't... do you mean you just skip it? Is that what you mean? I don't think that's worth it, no. Your Stone Skin, it's also pretty good. The fact that it's instant is actually pretty crazy. But it's going to be awkward in frontline because it only hits you and your party. So if you're not near your party... And then finally, this one initially read really weirdly to me, the Halen. But it costs MP. It is like the roll action without a cooldown. It's just a GCD. And it heals. So like initially I thought, wait a minute, did they just give every healer spammable healing? But they didn't. They made it so that healers can choose to, at a slight loss, give someone else their recuperates. Because it costs a recuperate and it heals for 3k less. To your suggestion, Bondi, the problem is that Paradox, Fire Paradox, and Ice Paradox, by the way, increase the average potency of your rotation significantly. So I imagine the only scenario where this might be worth it is if the fight is drawing to a close, and choosing to skip a Paradox could lead to you getting an extra Flare Star. But to put like the thought process a bit up and running, Bondi, you could skip Ice Paradox as well. Like you could just make it Blizzard 3, Blizzard 4, Fire 3, 6 Fire Force, Despair, Flare Star. In fact, you could skip Despair as well. But it's all an average potency loss. So like Flare Star really has to bring it home, which means that if you don't manage to reach back around to get a Flare Star, it's not worth it. Reglita says, I figured Stone Skin would be the choice for most. I imagine Stone Skin is the easiest one to use, because Halen comes at a cost to yourself, and Diabrosis is, you know, an attack. It's rather specific. I don't think the Stone Skins will stack, because it's a single buff, but it might stack. But among the different roles, I feel like the tank ones are really interesting because all three are good depending on what you're doing. And speaking of what you're doing, the Borderland Ruin Secure, for some reason, they didn't make sure that that one would actually be on key now. This one is coming tomorrow evening, for Europe anyway. Knockbacks are really mean in that one, unless they change the layout enough. Which means full swing is going to be extremely funny. Rampart is great in frontline. I imagine Rampage is really, really good in like small skirmishes in Crystalline Conflict, for instance. Or with enough support, it might be better than Rampart in frontline as well. For healers, I feel like Stone Skin is a nice default, and the other two can be more situational picks. For mages, well, in frontline, Comet is going to be really funny, especially if you have a bunch of them. Like, I can already picture that frontline is going to have a lot of cases where you just see, like, a bunch of mages, like, just random mages just roll up and then just Comet on a crystal or whatever, or on the enemies. Oh, you're right, Bits. Roll actions are not for Crystalline Conflict. Sorry, my bad. That's true. I imagine Dervish will be the rare pick for ranged physical. It'll probably be between Bravery and Eagle Eye Shot. I could imagine Dancers will like Bravery because they're the most likely to get up close and they will appreciate the damage reduction when they do. Eagle Eye Shot is probably going to be a good default for Machinists because it's basically like an extra smaller limit break. And I would guess Bards might choose Dervish, but they also might not. Like, They already have like a bunch of GZD reduction. For melees, I imagine that something like Viper might actually choose Bloodbath more frequently, because it alleviates a specific weakness of Viper. Smite is probably going to be the default for most melees, because it's just a nice finisher. And Ninja has bad synergy with both Bloodbath and Smite in different ways. Like, I mean, Smite can be nice so that Ninja has like a finisher when their limit break is on cooldown, or not ready. But because it's like, it's more situational, it wouldn't surprise me if ninjas just pick Swift so they have one more way of exiting a battle. Like, Ninja doesn't need that either. Like, they don't need it. But it's really funny that that's the best one, as far as I can see. And the reason why they probably wouldn't choose Bloodbath is because this is physical damage, this is physical damage. I think this is physical damage. This is magic, this is magic, this is magic, and this is magic. And like, a big part of their attacks are physical, but not all of it, which means that they have worse value out of Bloodbath than other melees. It's so funny that Viper can't even get all of Reawaken under Bloodbath without losing Noxious Nash on Ouroboros. That is funny. I guess what you would do is that you would use Bloodbath and then Limit Break. And it's not too bad because Ouroboros has Lifesteal on it on its own. So it kind of works out. But yeah, in addition, there's the return of the Borderland Ruins. Tomorrow at some point. And I hope you'll have fun with those new role actions. But I think that that's all about job changes for this patch. Mostly. And yeah, I saw that too, Ham. Can Samurai Bloodbath for full LB for full HP bar heal? I guess so, yeah. If it does physical damage, then yes. I guess so. And I guess that would also suggest that Samurai probably would use Bloodbath, because again, Smite, like, I mean, Smite can be helpful if someone survives the limit break through a barrier or something. But that's really specific, and Bloodbath is probably more helpful, mostly. But, yeah, in regards to the job change, the PvE job changes, I have a Black Mage Guide remake in the works. I plan to, like, release that once I, like, sometime next week, hopefully. Because all these changes mean that a lot of the things that I suggest in my existing guide is probably not super accurate anymore. For instance, the fact that Transpose Flare is actually really good at level 50 changes some things. I'm also thinking of revisiting Viper, now that we know it isn't getting majorly changed for 7.2, because the 7.0 guide still mentions Noxious Nash. Can Ninja Bloodbath for the entire execute range? The problem, Bits, is that Ninja's Limit Break doesn't do damage. When you execute with it, it doesn't do damage. It just says, you're dead now. So Samurai's work because it does actual damage numbers. Ninja's wouldn't work because either it does 10k damage or it kills you. But yeah, exactly. Player.state dead. But I feel like we got over it all. If you got into this stream a little bit late and you feel like, well, you didn't cover anything that I wanted to know, or not the jobs that I care about, I took them all in order. And I explained the order at the start, so you can probably find when we talk about your job, if you wanted to, like, see what happened there, want me to explain that. Some of them, like, later on, I get a little bit more quick with it, because it's like, oh yeah, that's the 4th time we've read that exact explanation. with the damage drop-offs and whatnot. But the idea is the same. We also spent a bunch of time on specifically outlining a bit of the things with Black Mage. But the aim now, for me, is now that you've all had a pretty good chance to get way ahead of me with the MSQ, I'll round up this stream, short break, and then a new stream with the new MSQ stuff. Right? So, if you enjoyed this particular stream, it helps me a lot if you leave a like on it here on YouTube. That tells the algorithm this was an enjoyable stream, and like other people to enjoy as well. So, thank you so much in advance. And if you'd like to be part of the Discord community server, there's a link that Ariel posted right there. There'll be links to the streams today, just for instance. And you can also, participate in the discussion and whatnot. And if you'd like to support the channel even more directly, you can become a member of the channel, you can gift memberships, you can use the super chat system, or if you don't like any of that, there's a Ko-Fi link in the description. It all helps support me and the channel directly so that I can do stuff like this with all of you. So thank you so much for the support. But that'll be all from me for a little bit. We'll be back in a short while, so if you want to catch me doing the MSQ, stay tuned. In the meantime, have a good afternoon, or whatever time it is at your place. Bye-bye.